Oh, right, the poison.
Poison, while not always an elemental attribute, is a highly ubiquitous hazard in gaming. It's one of the most common things that you'll come across in games, even outside of the RPG genre. Its lethal attribute tends to vary as well, covering the spectrum from mild annoyance to death countdown. As such, I had no shortage of bosses to choose from. Unfortunately, not a lot of good ones. As one of my commenters put it,
poison bosses tend to be the absolute worst. I honestly struggle to think of a good one.
Yep, name is appropriate. Poison bosses are usually frustrating. Their whole mechanic is about damage over time, which induces panic or distraction, or inflicts status effects which hinder how well you can play, or even in some cases, screwing with what actions you can take. Because of this, it's really challenging to make a poison boss that's also fun to fight.
As such, I had to stretch the rules a little bit to find bosses that were actually good.
So I'm gonna count poison as anything that uses poison as an element, or corrosive acid, neurotoxins/hallucinogens, plague, pollution, venom, radiation, etc. Pretty much any hazardous substance that causes damage over time and or some cases hinders your abilities. So let's dive in. Here are the top 10 poison bosses in gaming.
You roam through the chalice dungeons or through the fog of the old church. Your senses are dulled. You feel like you're ready for anything. And then you run smack dab into this beauty!
I don't know. It's just, after you fight the guy that uses its own placenta as a weapon, the other things just kinda pale.
That's not to say this isn't one freaky abomination, because it is. Meet the Blood-Starved Beast, a deformed, ravenous creature who wears its peeling, rotted skin like a snuggie. It has an insatiable thirst for blood, and its own blood is incredibly toxic, which gives it a sickly advantage in the actual fight. While it's mostly more of a hands-on attacker, it's lightning fast. It can knock you on your butt the moment you run into it if you don't think quickly. Oh, but that's not all. If you can knock its health down a few notches, its noxious blood oozes out so that even touching it will debuff you. Add to that, it can unleash a poisonous blast that can coat it in a deadly aura, so you can't even approach it without getting afflicted. In short, taking this monstrosity on is near impossible. Unless you know how to outfox it, and believe it or not, it can be done. One really easy method is to dodge to the monster's left. That'll help you avoid all its attacks and give you some good follow-up strike opportunities. Also, you can actually use its depraved bloodlust to your advantage. Just get a hold of some pungent blood cocktails and use them to distract the plasma-hungry beastie. And then, with the monster's attention occupied, smite him down with his one glaring weakness: fire.
Fire! Bang!
Overall, there's not a whole lot of build up to this one, and it can be pretty easy to beat once you get the hang of it. Still, I'll be darned if you don't feel even a little sick tangoing with this deformed vixen. Minecraft is usually not the go-to place when it comes to bosses, yet as it stands, the game does have affinities that made its approach on the subject pretty special, particularly when it comes to the poison element, as I've demonstrated. Enter the Wither, an extremely hostile mob dead set on blasting anything that moves. Just like its lesser spawn, the Wither's skeletons, its attacks are capable of inflicting Wither, an advanced poison status that can kill you if you don't purge it soon. If you think the standard hit from a wither skeleton is scary enough, how about dealing with a super powered one, flying while firing poisonous wither skulls at you? The skulls the wither shoots also doubles as a built-in terraformer. It's bad enough that you have to deal with the state of constantly withering. The fact that you can even lose ground in this fight pretty much strips you of little space to breathe into tension. You will need to take intervals and hide if you value your life. As it gradually loses health, it picks any nearby prey to cling onto, coating itself with a barrier that deflects projectiles. Hope you have a good melee weapon on standby, because you're not getting any chances to hide with this cryptic creep eyeing you all evening. Despite how exhausting the battle can get, the Wither is surprisingly fun to fight. One of the reasons being that you got plenty of countermeasures. Smite enchanted weapons will cut the undead down to size, and instant health potions can sure make it cry.
Time for the healing!
No, not me! No!
The doctor is in.
Another reason is that defeating it will grant you a Nether Star, a drop you can craft into a beacon and enhance your efficiency in mining and mob cleaning. It's a satisfying reward for engaging a pretty stressful boss. Granted, you do have to go through the tedium of grinding wither skulls to even spawn this monster. Still, depending on how much you tolerate it, the payoff might just be worth the hassle. It's a pretty popular stereotype for those who wield poison to be equally as toxic in personality. Take a look at Singed from League of Legends, for example. He was famous for unleashing chemical warfare with no regard for who the weapons harmed, enemy or ally. Truly a madman with no moral fiber whatsoever. However, there is one to stand opposed to this stereotype. A precious sweet girl who knows that Kingdom Hearts is light. I am, of course, talking about the poison type gym leader from Verbeek City in Black 2 and White 2, Roxy. Roxy is an interesting trainer, especially for a user of the poison type. Her battle strategy is centered around the move Venoshock, which deals 130 base power on poisoned targets. For reference, that's the same base power as the much feared Draco Meteor, and in hard mode, every one of her 3 Pokemon carries a move that can inflict poison. Of course, Roxy is only the second gym leader, and if you're willing to do some exploring, the Verbeek complex is home to Magnemite, a steel electric type who is completely immune to poison type. And if you're really willing to go the extra mile, you can evolve a Riolu found earlier in the game into a steel fighting type Lucario before you face the gym. The only recourse Roxy's team has for steel types is a weak mud slap from her Grimer, a move that only has 20 base power. But what about who Roxy is as a person? Well, that's what really sets her apart from the other Pokemon candidate, Eternatus. Roxy is a caring girl who knows the way to responsibility. She's dedicated to her craft, both as a musician in a rock band and as a gym leader. She's often frustrated with her feckless father who wishes to shirk his duties to become a star. Roxy is confident in her skills, to the point that in the anime, she's become famous for only using 3 Pokemon, even if her opponent uses a full complement of 6. Yet, she never crosses the line into arrogance. She also values fairness, to the point that she willingly gave Ash's Pignite a poison-curing Pecha Berry mid-battle. Honestly, if I had to sum up Roxy in a single phrase, it'd be Sivi Pacem Parabellum. If you want peace, prepare for war. She cares about people and Pokemon, but she isn't afraid to fight. She's a good friend. But if you want to fight, then you'd best be prepared to wither away in her toxic onslaught. So, wait, does that make her an antitoxin instead of a poison? When it comes to measuring a Fire Emblem boss, a few factors play into the mix. Aside from the objective boss themselves, the layout of their battlefield and the arrangement of their army also play a crucial role in how their battles fare out. This could also play into elemental affinities, though it will depend on how relevant the boss is to the surrounding element and vice versa.
So, without further ado, cue the organs and sound the opera!
More reasons why Golden Deer is the best route? How about that the final boss is practically Bata the Beast jacked on dragon blood? Nemesis is a very unique final boss in a series clustered with giant dragons and eldritch deities taking center stage. And you bet he's got the power, army, and battlefield to complement his reputation as one. The battle takes place on the Caledonian Plateau, a piece of land drenched with a poisonous swamp. The terrain takes up a massive chunk of the map and safeguards Nemesis himself. Unless you have flying units and long-range spellcasters at your beck and call, your troops will be treading lots and lots of harsh ground to progress. Nemesis himself comes prepared with a plethora of undead units and winged beasties subjugating the swamp's affliction. Adding more to it is his ballista army, fully prepared to shoot your winged units down with poison arrows. Now, if you thought that's all the battle has to do with poison, look harder. Nemesis and his 10 elites come equipped with Cursed Power, a skill that allows them to heal damage as they step over the swamp terrain. If you seek to even hurt the Fell King, you're gonna need to bring all the 10 elites down and remove the Code of Power he attains through the Mighty King of Legends skill. Killing Lamine in particular will remove the swamp terrain, and removing Odessa will halt any further beast reinforcements. Only then will you be anywhere near ready to engage Nemesis. With the replica of the Creator Sword on hand, he's still just as formidable as you'd expect from the King of Liberation. Or you could just sink a fully powered Hilda on him. That'll do some work. Probably still too much work for Hilda. Once you stripped him of his army, the fight does have very little to do with poison anymore. Had Nemesis utilized it more into his own arsenal, he would have been higher on the list. Regardless, the fight against Nemesis makes really interesting use of the element as a whole. Given that poison is an affliction used mainly for withering down the enemy, the Undead Mass came well prepared to propertize it defensively. Kind of ironic considering they're the ones leading the attacking team.
Okay, guys, the script says I'm supposed to be acting like I'm tripping on acid. Okay, this is a family channel, alright? I don't care how much freedom I give my writers. There's no way I'm going to stoop to the level of
Lolly Lulelo, Lolly Lulelo, Lolly Lulelo, Lolly
Lou?
Lulelo.
Yeah, it's me. Could you send an ambulance? My husband's been method acting again.
Alright, who's number 6 again? Oh, right, it was Acid Man from Mega Man 11. Yeah. Like most Mega Man bosses, Acid Man's a pretty simple boss, but has some fun tricks that make him unique as a poison boss. His acid shots, while they don't poison, are still corrosive. They do a lot of damage and can paralyze Mega for a brief second. His main gimmick though, and the power he gives once you beat him, is the Acid Barrier. This shield will melt any projectile that is launched at him, making him pretty much invincible. Luckily, it can be broken with enough shots. Other than that, he has a hyper mode where he dives underneath the stage and launches a giant wave towards you. A wave of corrosive acid, of course, and then jumps to a corner of the screen and launches even more acid projectiles at you. The battle itself isn't too complicated, but slowing down time doesn't help much because if you get hit, you're still paralyzed. The block power you get can do a lot of damage as well, and even one-shot the barrier, so it can be very useful for this fight. While Acid Man isn't really the normal damage over time poison that I'm trying to focus on for this list, he uses poison in creative enough ways and proficiency that he can not only get on this list, but also come in at number 6.
Okay, I think I got all the acid out of me. Let's just hope I don't get poisoned for the rest of this countdown. Why?
Well, I can still talk, so let's talk about the fear from Metal Gear Solid 3. While Snake is taking a casual walk through the woods, a random poison dart appears and is shot into his leg. Then, a weird reptile man using camouflage comes out and shows himself with snake eyes and a weird long tongue that Girahim copied. While he might look like a lizard, the poison he spits can be a bit more deadly. I'll let him explain.
That bolt is coated in the venom of the Brazilian wandering spider. Soon, a most exquisite pain will engulf your entire body. Your limbs will be paralyzed, your lungs cease to draw breath. Eventually, your heart will stop beating. But what fun would that be?
He coats the darts he uses with venom from other animals to infect you, and if you don't use an antidote, he can kill you pretty quickly. Though, he does warn you like the noble lizard man that he is, who is trying to strike fear into and eventually kill you. Other than poison darts, he employs frag grenade arrows or white phosphorus arrows. And for those who played Spec Ops, you know how deadly that last one is. To fight him, you will need to use infrared vision to find him while he's camouflaged and shoot him. He will jump from tree to tree pretty fast while invisible and shoot darts at you that either explode or poison you. In normal Metal Gear fashion, the fear can be beaten in some pretty interesting ways. You can use the fake death pill to lure him over to you and make him open. You can launch a stun grenade at him and deplete his stamina. And funnily enough, you can trick him into eating poisoned food and make him throw up. Ha ha! Who's the poison boss now? The fear is a pretty early boss, so he doesn't have any major tricks to him compared to other bosses in Metal Gear Solid 3, and his use of poison doesn't go further than darts and him looking like James McAvoy trying out for a Spider-Man villain role. However, the boss is still fun and creative enough to get this high. Just remember to take out the dart that he stabbed you with, or else it'll be stuck in you for the rest of the game.
Why do people insist on doing this crap to me? Talk about a toxic work environment. Alright! We got another Monster Hunter entry. Last time it was a black dragon whose armor was made up of the corpses of adventurers. This time it's a dragon whose armor is made out of the corpses of monsters. It's the circle of life.
Val Hazak is one of the new elder dragons that appears in Monster Hunter World. It's a terrifying dragon that makes its nest in the Rotten Vale. Pretty much a monster graveyard where any monster near the end of its life cycle goes to die. Val takes big advantage of this. It gains power and nutrients from the decayed corpses of monsters. It then regulates the energy and gases that come from them, or better known as effluvial. Effluvial is a toxic gas that exists throughout the Rotten Vale, and Val Hazak has the ability to regulate it, using it as both a defensive shield and beam attacks that can devastate hunters, or even a massive AoE that can launch effluvial everywhere. As in, the hunter is surrounded by effluvial, as in, they will lose a crap ton of health very quickly. This is even more so with the effluvial attacks from Val, causing massive damage as it builds up in the hunter. And when the effluvial levels reach max, it can halve your overall HP and make the battle end real quick. Though that isn't even the worst of it. The main contender here isn't Val Hazak, but instead its stronger variant from Iceborne, Black Veil Val Hazak. Imagine everything I said with normal Val, but add spores that can explode when enough damage is done to them. They can also stick to the ground, having effluvial deposits around the map, even in areas Val isn't that near to. Plus, its effluvial is both more potent and harder to avoid, making it the ultimate poison boss here. Now, Monster Hunter World players will be quick to point out that poison is its own status effect in this game, so why choose Val over other poison bosses like Viper Tobikadachi or Puke Puke? I don't know. Point is, poison is easily guarded with the right skills. Even if you use the effluvial resistance skill to avoid buildup or the effluvial expert skill to avoid environmental damage, you will still take overtime damage from Val's effluvial. Also, let's be honest, Val is just a more fun fight than they are. Interesting how, despite the effluvial effects, he is one of the easier Elder Dragons to fight. But yeah, okay, easy by Elder Dragon standards, it's still pretty hard, so expect a tough but fair fight. Val's appearance in World was a spectacle. To watch him rise from a mountain of bones and corpses, and it continues to impress with its incarnation in Iceborne. I really hope we see this zombie dragon in the future, because not only was he a challenge, but he was a scary one too. Just don't do the Resident Evil crossover quest. You literally become a zombie in that one. Phazon is a key plot element across the Metroid Prime trilogy. This radioactive substance is responsible for quite a bit that's happened throughout the series. This includes the creation of the progenitor of Dark Samus, Metroid Prime, and in a roundabout way, the creation of the Ing in Echoes. In both of these games, we've only gotten sparse chances to use Phazon ourselves to defeat the respective final bosses, until Corruption, where Phazon becomes a regular part of our arsenal after the tutorial.
How does it work?
Well, it gives you all kinds of crazy powerful new upgrades to your weapons. On the other hand, using it for too long causes you to enter Corrupted Hyper Mode. There, you risk getting an instant game over. This becomes an interesting strategic trade-off, sacrificing a little bit of health for a high-risk, high-reward power boost, as well as the fact that Phazon-induced beings are actually weak to Phazon.
The only thing hard enough to penetrate it is itself.
Wait a minute. A substance that makes you vastly more powerful in exchange for potentially harming you. Wow. I haven't seen a metaphor for drugs this in your face since NLP Gen 1.
Bring me some more witchweed potion.
This all comes to a head when you reach the game's final planet, Phase. As the name implies, it's the source of the Phazon throughout the galaxy. Here, you'll be permanently stuck in hyper mode. The more damage you take, the more your meter fills. And what happens then? Game over. I mean, the Metroid franchise is no stranger to situations where the clock is ticking, even during a boss fight. But this is unique in that instead of waiting for something to deplete, you gotta make sure something doesn't overload. You gotta get to the bottom as fast as you can and take as little damage as you can. At the end of Phase, you come face to face with Dark Samus. As a being composed of pure Phazon, Dark Samus uses it as her main weapon. From summoning pillars to blasts, clones, heck, she can even heal herself with it. While all of this is going on, your Phazon level will be steadily increasing thanks to the environment. Fortunately, you can destroy these pillars she summons to get anti-Phazon units. It's tense, it's challenging, and it's a fitting final battle to cap off the entire series. It's great that it ended at this fight, and there's nothing else after this. Nothing else after this.
So remember, kids, don't do drugs. Only intergalactic bounty hunters can do them.
We talked about the Arkham series a lot in these boss countdowns, and yet we've been sorely neglecting the black sheep of the family, Origins. A whole plethora of boss fights was promised with this 8 Assassins story arc, and really, only a small number of them were really important or amazing. The rest were either shoved into side missions or...
In every rogues gallery, there's gotta be one. Oh, maybe I'm being too harsh. I mean, you can always come and surprise us later.
However, among the game's more memorable fights is the toxic tango against the deadly, slippery assassin, Copperhead. Copperhead's another one of Batman's lesser-known baddies, usually shown as just a guy in a snake costume. This time around, however, they reinvented the character just for the games. A lady contortionist from South America who takes her snake-themed moniker to a whole new level. To the level of she has an actually forked tongue. How did she even...
You're not old enough to know, and neither am I.
Disturbing medical questions aside, like the actual snake, she is incredibly nimble, able to sneak around or flip circles around you with ease. The only thing more deadly than her bite is her scratch, as she comes armed with venomous talons, and the poison doesn't waste any time kicking in. Even before the fight starts, we see the toxins taking effect. The world starts distorting, Batsy visibly struggling to walk, and his guilty conscience playing with his mind, and once again making us ask how he can make it through an airport with all that emotional baggage. As for the actual fight, a visual goldmine. The entire arena is dark except for a sickly green light, illusion clones of Copperhead swarming around the disoriented bat, bringing a bigger sense of isolation and uncertainty. It only gets worse halfway through when she starts hiding in the shadows, waiting to strike. Really, the only hope you have is to try and stay alive until Alfred can deliver the antidote. Then you can take the slippery Bruja down on somewhat equal footing. I always love the hallucination sequences in the Arkham series, and this one is no exception. Anyone who's been poisoned or gone through a fever dream can get behind how tense the situation is. Made even worse by our hero's haunting guilt and the painfully isolated arena reflecting his own "I'm a one-man army" mentality. I know Origins has been dubbed the least good of the Arkham games, but really, if this is the franchise's biggest low, porting issues not included, then that really says a lot about the series' quality. Especially since they managed to turn a battle against an obscure DC villain into a trippy, noxious, cinematic experience. SMOKY PROGG, PIKMIN. You know what happens when you poke weird eggs in nature? This happens. Eternatus, Pokemon. Pokemon's first poison legendary is the most metal-looking embodiment of entropy ever. Chloe Walsh, No More Heroes 2.
Love my...
Toxic love. Damn, what was I thinking? She's definitely not a broad I'd want to hook up with.
Petey Piranha, Super Mario Sunshine. He's just a mean green mother from the Mushroom Kingdom who spits sludge. Plague Knight, Shovel Knight. I love the fact they're wearing an actual plague mask like in the old days. Really clever. And to the surprise of no one, the #1 most toxic boss is the CEO of EA.
Thank you. You've been a terrific audience. I'm here twice a month. Sometimes more.
Okay, for real this time.
Behold, the ferocity and terror that is Hakon the Soul Flayer. This twisted, divine blood god is the object of worship for the Gurubashi trolls, and it is foretold that his rebirth would bring about dark times for their kind. And indeed, it did seem as such, for this Leviathan's potent blood carries a deadly poison capable of spreading to epidemical levels, slowly sucking the life out of any unfortunate soul it latches onto. How devastating is this terrifying plague?
Apparently, bad enough to break the whole game for about a week. For those who don't know, in the way back when of 2005, Blizzard released a new World of Warcraft raid called Zul'Gurub, and with it came our previously mentioned oversized Danger Noodle. Hakar came equipped with a deadly debuff called Corrupted Blood, which slowly deals massive damage to anyone infected by it. This debuff was highly contagious to any other player standing too close, and even their pets. Pay close attention to that last part. This is where things get messy. Now, normally, these little debuffs don't last long and don't usually travel outside of the raid area. But thanks to quality foresight at its best, the corrupted blood actually remained dormant in pets and minions even outside the raid. And what happened next?
To play. No. Yes.
It spread. It spread hard. Anyone who got too close to those already infected was instantly exposed to the curse. And before you know it, we've got an entire virtual pandemic on our hands. Low-level players dying and regular players' life force being sapped away, and everyone is forced to take extreme measures to avoid getting infected.
How am I supposed to talk about this without getting topical?
Thankfully, Blizzard eventually released a patch to fix the problem, but their poor oversight really made this glitch one for the history books. The corrupted blood incident got so infamous that apparently it's become a subject of study by actual epidemiologists because of how eerily close to home it was compared to a real-life outbreak. Honestly, the fact that one little glitch caught the intrigue of real medical professionals more than justifies Hakar's place on the list.
I'm the Fiery Joker, and... Well, that was nonsensical. Inspired!
Hey everyone, this is Josh. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share the video around. Please check out my other social media like my Twitter, Twitch, and Tumblr. Check out my other channels such as Joshua Burner for reactions and other stuff, Dragon Fighter Gaming for tabletop, and Bob Equestria for cartoons. Consider checking below the video and donating to my Patreon, Streamlabs for my merchandise, or becoming a YouTube member, and you'll get rewards like this. Our name shoutouts come from Ryan Anderson. Thanks for watching.